Hello, my name is Michael Toleran, and I am today's host of the Landscape Architecture Podcast. And today's guests are Janelle and Ethan. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having us.
Yeah.
So both of you started a Instagram account called @POC_arch. And before we talk about that Instagram account, can you please introduce yourselves?
Okay. So we are Black Canadian architecture students of Caribbean descent. So I'm Ethan, and I am a recent Bachelor of Architecture graduate.
I'm Janelle. I'm in my fourth year of architecture studies. And before we got into architecture, we both studied city planning and sustainability. So, yeah.
Excellent. And what was the motivation to start this Instagram account?
So we just noticed that in our school, just throughout our education, that there wasn't much architecture projects being shown by people of color. So we decided to create this Instagram account to kind of showcase projects done by people of color. We wanted to educate both ourselves and other people.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you are the curators and also facilitating a conversation.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah, which is great. So let's talk a little bit about the statistics that you guys found in regards to people of color in architecture.
Okay. So according to NOMA, the National Organization of Minority Architects, less than 2% of licensed architects in the US are Black. And of the 2,325 licensed Black architects, 20% of licensed Black American architects, Black African American architects are female. And that's according to the Directory of African American Architects. And in architecture schools, 5% are African American, 15% are Hispanic or Latino, and 10% are Asian. And in the architecture field, 9% are Hispanic and Latino, 9% are Asian, and 2% are African American.
And we're using U.S. statistics because it was difficult for you guys to find statistics in Canada.
Yes, it was very difficult.
which is a problem as well.
Yeah, exactly. That's part of the conversation that we need to have.
Yeah, it's just about making important information like this more accessible to as many people as possible.
Yeah.
So that was a big motivation for starting the POC arc.
Yeah.
Great. And we're going to, in this conversation, we're going to highlight particular works that both of you have found. And we'll just kind of go through them and talk about them formally, and we could put the links on our show notes so people can follow along and look at them. But before we do that, real quick, can we talk about both the NOMA, the National Organization of Minority Architects, and BFA, Black Females in Architecture? You guys recently discovered those two organizations, correct?
Yes. Yeah. So we are just looking into different organizations for minority architects. It has been a little difficult to find like Black architects and stuff like that, or minority architects. Thankfully, we stumbled upon these two organizations. Female architects make up, in America, 0.3% of all architects. So I'm glad that there's an organization specifically for Black female architects, since they're the smallest type of architects. So it's a great resource. Both organizations showcase different people of color and their projects.
And they both have an Instagram account, so if you have social media, it's really easy to just follow their work.
Yeah, what strikes me interesting about that is, um, you know, um, Janelle, you're a fourth year, and Ethan, you just graduated,
Yeah.
and it seems like this should be in your first year that you were made aware of these two organizations, and that you had to find it independently outside
Yeah.
of school. So I,
Definitely.
I feel like that says a lot.
Yeah, oh, sorry. There's definitely not a lot of resources. Like a lot of schools don't make these resources known to us at all. So if you wanted to be exposed to projects by people of color or different resources for people of color within the field, you have to actively seek them out yourself, which is kind of unfortunate. So
Yeah, like even when you go to the library, there's very little literature about Black architects.
mhm.
So it's just very hard to find digitally and physically.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
really gotta do your research and dig deep to
Yeah.
find organizations like NOMA and
Yeah.
yeah.
I have hope that that's going to change very fast. And I
Mhm.
believe that that change is going to happen because I feel that the students are going to present it to the schools and to the professors and say, well, here it is. I think that if the generations coming up are going to wait for the universities to do it, um, maybe it might be a longer wait than we want. And so I think that the work that you're doing is important because it's going to expedite everything.
Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely. That's the other thing, because with my school, we're currently drafting a letter
Hmm.
just addressed to the faculty that's basically pointing out that there are barely any resources for people of color within the field. And just there's not as many outreach programs to get people of color interested in architecture in general. In my year, there's only 3 Black people out of the entire class. So, yeah,
Yeah.
it is telling.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be like there's no like summer camps or like case studies like that focus on people of color in architectures. So you didn't get that out of school. So
Yeah.
it's a bit unfortunate.
And
Yeah.
it's also not just my school. Like while my school's drafting a letter, we're referring to University of British Columbia's letter. They referred to Harvard's letter and University of Toronto's letter. So it's a widespread issue, and
Yeah.
a lot of students are starting to speak up, which is really good.
Yeah.
So I do think that's going to change really quickly.
Yeah. What's the process of drafting that letter, and who are you drafting it with, and what resources are you using to collect all of your thoughts?
Yeah, so we are currently meeting a lot on Zoom. Normally we just meet in person, but
Sure.
circumstances. Yeah, so yeah, we're just having a bunch of conversations on Zoom and just discussing different issues that we'd like to point out through the letter. Essentially, what we have is a Google Doc, and we all just compile our thoughts into a table, and then afterwards we're planning on going through that table and like kind of fine tuning it so that it's clear and concise,
Mm,
and easy for faculty members to understand. Like there's clear goals that we want to address. So
sure. And are you going to reach out to any organizations that are more established to possibly to review the letter, or are you guys just gonna go as students? Like, are you gonna
uh,
reach out to leaders in your community?
well, that's the thing though, because a lot of schools want to maintain their reputation. So we are trying to fix the school within itself
Yep.
first, and if nothing changes, then we'll probably reach out to other organizations to kind of pressure them a bit more. But
Sure. I was referring more to as just a review of
uh,
wording and context as opposed to uh, uh, bringing in uh, organizations to get involved. I was just thinking
Oh,
in that regards. So
sorry about that.
um,
Misunderstood.
no. Yeah, I probably worded it wrong, but it seems like you guys got it handled. Like you guys are getting close to resolving that letter.
Yeah, definitely. We are just writing it among ourselves.
Mhm.
There is one faculty member that has reached out and is trying to help us out with it.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah, he is also in charge of an outreach program that our school has for Black Canadians in Nova Scotia. So yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, he's very much involved in that as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
Should we get talking about some cool work that you guys found?
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
definitely.
All right, cool. Okay, so the first one that we have is the floating music hub,
Mhm.
and let's talk about that one.
Okay. So this project is from this year, so 2020, and it's by Kunle Adimi, a Nigerian-born architect, and his firm is based in Amsterdam. So this project is located in Modelo, Cape Verde. So a few interesting points about this project is there's many different variations of the project in different countries.
Oh,
And
really?
Yeah.
yes,
Wow,
so
yeah.
yeah, so the first project was in Lagos, Nigeria, uh, and there's one in China, and so there's been many different versions of it. I guess he's doing that to uh, analyze its performance and upgrade the design each time. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
I really like that about the project
Yeah.
because you also have to adapt it to different climates as well and
Mhm.
different like cultural aspects. Like the program of the building might change depending on where he decided to locate it, which is
Yeah.
Sure.
also something. So
Yeah, and the main design intent for the project is to combat the impact of sea level rise
Mm.
in urban areas. It's a triangular, it's a wood frame building, and it floats on the water.
Aesthetically, it's very beautiful.
It is,
Yeah,
yeah.
I really like it. There was like a cool color and like a definitely a very strong voice, a very distinct
Mhm.
piece. So I think that was a good piece. And it says here that it's prefabricated, modular, floating A-frame, which makes sense now how it could work in very different locations, right? If it's prefabbed, it's just a matter of shipping, installing, and then modifying it for the particular location.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
That's
Um,
the other
that
thing.
also helps with sustainability as well.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Because it limits the I guess the unknowns of constructing it on site.
Yeah.
Because in prefabrication, it's
Yeah. Already.
the specs are already like predetermined. So
Yeah.
Yeah. And why is it called a floating music hub? What does music have to do with it?
it's basically like a cultural center. So
Yeah.
there's
Oh, I
music.
see. It's
Yeah,
to
so there's
promote
music.
music, dance, art, and other creative
Yeah,
industries in Africa. Okay, got it.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
it's like a whole creative
Like a cultural
hub.
center, pretty much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I want to go.
yeah,
That sounds awesome.
yeah,
Yeah, I kind of want to visit that someday too.
yeah. Me too.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
All right. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. And unless you had more comments on the floating music hub.
Uh, oh no, I think
Okay.
I'm good.
Okay.
All right. So the next one would be the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History in Washington, D.C., which is probably, well, let's just start talking about it.
Yeah, so this building was completed in 2016. The architect is David Ajayi. He is Tanzanian born, and his firm is based in Britain. So yeah, the building was located in Washington, D.C. One thing that I found really interesting about this building was that it's like completely wrapped in this bronze ornamental lattice, and that's like a nod to the African American craftsmanship. So I thought that was really interesting. It's very culturally significant for him to choose to do that. Yeah, another thing, like along with the bronze lattice, there's a lot of other materiality and design choices that are used to like evoke different emotions as you move through the building, which is really important, being a museum with such an impactful historic presence. So yeah.
Yeah. And right now, this is a site for many of the current Black Lives Matter protests.
Yeah.
And I think that um, the museum is also archiving signs of the protests, which I thought was very interesting and very important.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Well, it looked like you had a thought, Ethan. What were you gonna say?
Oh, I just think it's always important to remember these important moments in history. So I really appreciate how they're playing a positive role in displaying that. So the impacts of these protests don't fade or be forgotten. So.
And also, just I think that there's not a better place to protest than this building that proves that African Americans have a deep history throughout the country.
Sure.
That proves that Black lives should matter, and they do matter in America and should matter everywhere.
Yeah.
So I think just choosing to protest at that specific location is very significant as well.
Sure. And of course, it being in Washington, D.C. is significant as well. So geographically, aesthetically, the architect being from Tanzania and of British descent, you guys get what I mean. But yeah, there's a lot of it hits a lot of markers in order for it to work.
Definitely.
All right, let's talk about the regional market.
Okay. So the regional market is also from this year, 2020. It's by architect Miriam Kamara. She's also Nigerian born, or
no, she's from Niger.
From Niger, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's where her firm's based as well.
Yeah, her firm's based in Niger. And a few interesting points about this project is the market is organized around an ancestral tree that has become the public space to be during market day for market goers and sellers. The design is inspired by these metal tree canopies for shade.
Yeah.
And the metal canopy is made from recycled materials. And it's usually to compensate for the lack of shade and in the arid desert environment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say it. And I think this piece is much more of a landscape architecture piece than it is an architecture piece. I mean, I'm just gonna claim it on our behalf. But no, it's so beautiful. The things that I like about it is I definitely like that it's centered around the tree. I like the materiality and the color palette. It seems to complement the environment as opposed to stand out from it.
Yeah, the bricks are absolutely beautiful. Like that, like the metal tree canopy was like the striking feature, and also the bricks. I thought like it just gives the project a great pop.
Yeah,
and
they really contrast each
other.
other.
It's like I feel like it's like a vibrant place to be. So, yeah.
I also did want to note that I know like we're both from Grenada, so they do have a lot of markets there, and markets are like very culturally significant. People always go there, have conversations, meet each other. Like it's very like community centric. So I also like the idea that she designed this market just to like further enhance that as well.
Yeah.
So
And it makes sense that it's centered around this ancestral tree.
Yeah.
That just
Yeah.
anchors the whole, I feel like that just anchors the whole project.
All right. Do you guys have any closing thoughts or ideas?
I guess just check out our Instagram page. It's at POC_ARCH. Or you can, if you are a person of color and want to have your work featured on our page, you can email us at POCARCH@gmail.com. We'd love to feature people, or even if you have suggestions for.
Or even if you just want to talk.
Yeah.
we love when people message us.
Yeah.
Like, it brightens our day. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you guys are super cool.
Yeah.
So it'll
So
be pretty easy. All right. Well, thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing how this conversation develops.
Yes.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
I had a good time.
Good conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.